how did you end up finding your way to the insurance industry from the sales route?
Yeah, so again, I'm old school. This was back in the day where you looked in the newspaper jobs. You know, there was no it was no Google and
right.
Indeed and all that.
I remember that too. I'm just like I was around when you were looking at the newspaper circling. Yes,
I was flipping through the local newspaper, and I just started focusing on sales. And there's a lot of sales opportunities out there that aren't. I'm not gonna say they're not legit, but I mean it's just trash. So I had to weed my way through what a good sales position looked like without a degree, right? I didn't have a degree. I had some, a little bit of experience from what I was doing. I had my military background, and insurance just kept popping up. I kept seeing sales jobs, and when I would call, they were real slick with the wording. So I didn't know it was insurance until I called up. And then, after you get through the gatekeeper, they kind of break down what the position looks like. And I was like, all right, well, I keep seeing this. Let me at least see what this thing is talking about. And, I went to an interview, a group interview, and this guy was up there like rah-rahing, talking about all this money and this great opportunity. And, at first I was calling BS. Like, I mean, if it was this easy, everybody would be doing it.
Right.
And, they were doing like 5 meetings a day. So I'm like, well, again, you got this many people coming through. It can't be all that if you got to keep recruiting all these people. But, I had a conversation with one of the guys there on the second interview, and did a little research and said, I mean, it's definitely a legit opportunity. I mean, I see State Farm and all these other guys out here. This was a different route. It was a small career shop right outside of Baltimore. And, I went to the second interview, I talked to the guy, got all my questions answered. He told me what the process was of, get my pre-licensing and going ahead and taking my exam and getting my license. And I did it. I failed the first time I took the test. It's broken up in life and health when I took it. And I failed the life portion. And this was hurtful. I failed by 1 point. And I looked at the woman and said, why would you even tell me that? Like, let me think I was trash so I can go home and study everything. Like, when you fail by 1, you just like, man, I should have picked B instead of C. You know what I'm saying? So I'm in turmoil because I don't really know like what I messed up on. So I can't really hone in on what I got to go do. And because it was a commission-based job, I was basically unemployed. And I had to wait 2 weeks before I could go back and take the test. So, at this point, I got married when I was in the military, got married, young, had a kid. And I'm like, okay, I can't be out here unemployed. So, I retook the test, and thank God I passed. And that was the start of my career.
Wow. So now when you started, you because you're in benefits now. You deal in benefit, you do individuals and benefits. Yes. So when you started, was it more on the individual side or was it more on the business side?
Individual.
So kitchen table. Wow.
Only Black guy in the office. So they sent me to the hood. Yeah. And this was when there's a show on HBO that used to come on HBO called The Wire. And it was really popular back then. And I mean, a lot of crime, a lot of violence, a lot of death. And again, the only Black guy in the office. So they sent me to the hood, right? So I'm in the hood, I'm trying to talk to people about life insurance. And this was primarily burial insurance at that time. Okay. They did a lot of burial insurance and they did a lot of med subs, which was a weird mix. But anyway, I'm in these communities talking to people about life insurance, and they're like, man, we don't buy life insurance. The city buries us. And I'm like, the city buries you? I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, Baltimore, bodies were dropping so fast in Baltimore, they were just burning the bodies and giving the family a box of ashes. So they didn't even believe in getting your basic burial insurance because they like the city going, take care of that. Even though it wasn't like a proper funeral or burial or anything, they just saw no value in it. So, I did that for a little bit. And after, having a couple of run-ins, I'm like, man, this ain't worth it. I got to get out of here. So, I went back and said, what else is there? I ain't trying to be risking my life every day for people that don't see value in what I'm doing. And then that's when I learned about Medicare supplements. So, still low income areas, but a completely different, demographic, completely different product. And that's where I think I cut my teeth and started making some money.
Okay. Okay. So going from basically going from a clientele that really didn't have a man, I hate to say appreciation, but really an appreciation for it, really not even a concept of what, you know, life insurance is really designed to do, right? Unfortunately, because when you say Baltimore and you say the Wire and you say the Hood, I know what you're talking about, you know. So yeah. You know, and I know who you're speaking to. So you made that switch into kind of the senior market, people who are, hey, they're retirees. They need this, this, you know, works alongside the healthcare. You know, this is something that is a necessity, you know, as well. And being able to work in that clientele. Did you do that? So now I want to kind of go back. Were you still with the same organization? Did you start to branch out and go and say, hey, I'm about to form my own shop at this point? You know, what was that kind of transition like?
Yeah, I was with the same organization. They had two different departments, you know, one focused on the life, one on the Medicare product. So I stayed there. And then in 2006, I moved to Atlanta. And I had to, you know, get my license in Atlanta. So I had to, you know, take pause for a minute, go do my pre-licensing again and pass the exam. And thank goodness this time I passed my first time. But in 2005 and 2006, when I moved, Medicare Advantage was a thing. Prescription drug program had just become mandatory. So, you know, all seniors had to get a plan or they would get penalized. So that was like wide open for people to at least have a conversation and see what their options were. And then followed right behind that came the Medicare Advantage plans. Mm-hmm. And, you know, this was when Medicare Advantage, there were a ton of zero premium plans out, especially in the low income areas around the city of Atlanta. Zero premium, you know, programs, low copays, low deductibles, and seniors were eating these things up. I mean, I had my best year to that point when I got to 2006, like by far, because it was so easy with these zero premium programs. With Medicare supplements, they got to cut a check, right? And it may be $200-$300 a month, depending on where they go with. Now I'm talking to people that like, you telling me that I don't have to pay, you know, that $200 no more. And I'm like, no, but there are some copays and other things you're responsible for. But for the average person, it just made sense because it gave them control over their healthcare because they knew what their limit was. Like if I reach 6,000 out of pocket, that's my max or whatever. And man, I tell you, I ate good that year.
Right, right. So look, the Medicare. Let's talk about the Medicare subs. I'm glad you know kind of spoke to that. The Medicare subs, Medicare Advantage. You know, this is a market space that, you know, I know there's regulations about it. You can, you know, can only talk about it in certain capacities, but can you give kind of an overview of what that is? Like what is it to provide or to sell or to work in that space? What is it?
So for me, it really was the first time in my short career that I felt like I was helping people, right? Because they were really benefiting from having a top quality healthcare plan that covered their needs and was something financially they could afford. You know, when I was working a lot of low income areas, a lot of people didn't have adequate coverage, right? So here in Atlanta, there's a hospital called Grady. That's the big hospital here in Atlanta. So a lot of people will go to Grady to get their healthcare, but they would be there like 7-8 hours a day just to see a doctor or, you know, 5 hours just to get a prescription. But that's all they knew. That was the state program that they were on to get their healthcare. Kind of like, you know, the VA for some of us. Like we know the VA can be a nightmare. You'll be all so it was kind of like that for them. And they hated it, but that's all they knew. And, you know, being sick and being at the doctor's office for 8 hours around other sick people, that's not fun. So with these plans through major companies like United Healthcare and Humana, like they were able to get quality healthcare with recognizable companies, and it just made them feel good. You know, it's like I don't have to use this Grady card and go see you all day. I can go over to, you know, nice part of town and go to the Humana office or the United Healthcare, you know, covered facility. And I mean, I really felt like it was the first time again that I was doing something that was really helping people.
Yeah, and specifically geared towards like I said, a community that needs that help.
Yeah.
You know, a market like the, you know, in our seniors. One question, I know this is a big one. I know the difference. I know, of course, you know the difference. But for the people who are listening, what's the difference between Medicare and Medicaid?
So Medicaid is the low income provision for people that don't have, you know, assets or, you know, income. Is usually people that are on the lower end of the financial spectrum. So they get, you know, things like welfare. You know, here in Georgia, they can get different things like food stamps. They get free, you know, health care. But the problem with it, what I found out, and let me full disclosure, I haven't done Medicare in about 5 years. So I know there may be some regulation to change. But when I was doing it, you know, a lot of doctors shied away from it because they didn't get paid the going rate for service, right? If you were a Medicare doctor, you couldn't charge, you know, full price for a service rendered. So, you know, a lot of doctors would only take a certain amount of Medicaid patients because they felt like, hey, I'm only getting 25 cents on the dollar, where if I don't take these clients, you know, I can get the whole dollar. So there was some, you know, there's some issues around that. But usually when you're getting Medicaid, you know, your state is stepping in and helping you with additional benefits, where as if you didn't have it, you'd have to pay completely out of pocket for either a Medicare supplement or qualify for Medicare Advantage program. Georgia is a Republican state. You know, when Obamacare came out, Georgia refused money and, you know, hurt a lot of people on the low end of the income spectrum because they were forced to either try to apply for Medicaid, which is a really strenuous process. Like, you got to tell them everything, you know, you can't have X amount of assets or savings or whatever. And then if not, you know, they weren't giving people, I can't remember what they're called. They the supplements towards the cost of insurance. So it was really messy here for a few years with people trying to figure out
the subsidies from ACA subsidies.
Yes. Yeah. It got really messy here in Georgia for a while.
So, and then on the Medicare side, you know, you don't have to be low income to participate. There's just the age factor, you know, because
based on how long you work. I mean, I got a son. My son is 22. He got his first real job a couple of years ago, and he came home just like every other kid, like, Dad, where's all this money going in my check? Like,
right,
dollars. And I'm like, you know, the Social Security, that's Medicare. So I mean, you know, 40 quarters, 10 years, whatever it is in your state, you work a certain period of time, and then when you retire, all that money that you've been paying into. I mean, they keep saying it's not going to be there when we retire, but you know, who knows? But it's supposed to be there and help supplement, you know, your income and your health care after you retire.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of distinguish the differences between the two, because I know that, I mean, shoot, when I was younger and I would hear Medicaid and Medicare, I'd be thinking they were the same thing, you know, and I would imagine, like, you know, when you work inside of this industry, you start to hear the differences in the coverages. But when you're out on the outside of it, it's so confusing. It seems and sounds so confusing, you know. I wanted to make sure, you know, that we clarify, because if somebody's listening like Medicare and they're thinking it's Medicaid, just make sure we all on the
no, that's 100% accurate. I got out because the regulations just got crazy.
Yeah,
with Medicare. Unfortunately, there was a lot of elder abuse, where because it was a zero premium product, you know, people were just being told, hey, sign here. Just to show my manager I came out to the appointment, and they were actually signing, you know, applications. So I mean, it got really dirty here in Atlanta. And then CMS stepped in, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They oversee all these products. And they put a lot of stuff in place, which was necessary, but it just became, you know, too many hindrances for me. So, you know, I kind of backed out and just pivoted and started just doing, you know, traditional life and traditional health products at that point.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. How did you make the transition into, you know, just building your own firm and, you know, branching out into what you have today? I mean, now you have teams, you got distributions, you got systems, you know, in place. That's not something to take lightly, because many people stay right in the producer lane forever and do well.
Yeah.
But to kind of start at that point and say, okay, now I'm going to leverage the distribution aspects of this business and really scale and build a full service firm, that's moving on a different kind of level. So how did that come about in your career?
Yeah, so the curtain was peeled back. Like I did really well. Like I said, when I moved to Atlanta, top 5 agent in the company. I got an all expense paid trip to Maui, the Grand Wailea Resort, one of the top 5 resorts. And I got to meet some agents from different parts of the country, and we started talking money. And these guys didn't look like me, but the money they was making was ridiculous.
Right.
And once you start having a couple of drinks, people are more apt to tell you, more than they would if they didn't. And when I got back, I got a promotion, and I was sitting down with my admin one day, and we were looking at the numbers. And I know what I was getting paid because I was at a career shop at that point. So I came in like real low comp on the life insurance side. I had like a 50-60% commission, right? But I'm now that I get access to the books, I'm looking and like, well, the company's making 150% comp off of this. That's a hell of a disparage. Just
yeah.
So I started learning more about the business. And, I got the promotion. Like I said, I started looking at the books, and I said, well, I kind of feel like this is something that now that I understand how it works, I can do myself, because nobody talked to me about ownership, right? We only make up about 8.5% of the industry. So typically we're the minority in the room. And again, not everybody's always open to sharing secrets, about how to advance in his career. I met a lot of guys who were 3rd, 4th generational insurance salesmen. I'm the first. I had nobody in my family to talk to about this.
For sure.
So, for me, it's like, okay, I kind of understand how it works. I've been doing it good enough. I know how to sell. I know how to recruit. I knew all the systems. And in 2011, I went independent. So, I put in my resignation. I was running 2 offices in Atlanta, doing fairly well. And in 2011, I went independent. And I'm gonna tell you, bro, like for 2 years, it was rough.
Yeah.
Because I'm very impulsive. Like if I feel it, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So, there was some tension between me and some of the other managers. Again, one of the few Black managers in the company, didn't always feel comfortable in certain environments. And when I made the decision, I did it. And I went from having, full budget for leads and recruiting. We used to do lunch and learns at the steakhouses. I mean, we spend 10 grand easy a month on flyers and different things like that. So here I am independent, like, oh, yeah, I ain't got that no more. You know what I'm saying? So I can't afford a lunch and learn. So I got to figure out how to prospect. So it took me a while to get my footing, probably about 1.5 years. But once I did, man, it was just straight up from there.
It was all. Let's stay on that, because, people oftentimes see the end result of someone's success, right? And don't see kind of the grind behind the grind, like those initial, kind of first steps. Even when you have some experience, making that transition, it's a big leap. It's a big leap.